This is the Christmas Movie Screenwriter Podcast, episode number 31. Hello and welcome to the Christmas Movie Screenwriter Podcast. I'm your host, Karen McCann. The Christmas Movie Screenwriter is a podcast about writing, producing, and selling Christmas movies. You can find a transcript, show notes, and an action checklist on my website. Just go to www.christmasmoviescreenwriter.com and look for this episode, which is number 31. A quick few words about what I'm working on. I am working on my author website, and I should be getting notes from my beta readers for my novel, my first novel, in about a week. And then I'll revise the script, hire an editor and a cover designer, and then it's off to the races. And now, here is the main segment. Gary Goldstein has written more than 15 produced telefilms, comedies, mysteries, and holiday movies. His latest, Friends and Family Christmas, won a 2024 GLAAD Award nomination for Outstanding Film, Streaming or TV. He wrote the theatrical feature rom-coms Politics of Love and If You Only Knew, as well as the streaming feature Mr. 365. Gary has sold or optioned many original screenplays and has sold comedy pilots to NBC and Warner Brothers. His many LA stage credits include the three-sister comedy April, May, and June, as well as the comedies Just Men, Parental Discretion, and Three Grooms and a Bride. He has also been a contributing arts writer for the Los Angeles Times since 2007. Well, Gary, thank you for coming on the Christmas Movie Screenwriter
Thanks for
Podcast
having
today.
me on. I appreciate it, Karen. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Now, you have a lot of Christmas movies under your belt. Lights, Camera, Christmas, Rediscovering Christmas, Forever Christmas, Angel of Christmas.
They all have Christmas in the title.
Yeah, easy to find. Now, can you share your journey of breaking into the industry as a Christmas movie screenwriter?
Sure. It was really kind of an accident. I had written a movie, the poster is there, called Hitched for the Holidays. I wrote it as a spec screenplay, as a big theatrical feature. And it didn't sell, almost sold. It did not sell. And I put it back on the shelf or on my hard drive, whatever it was. And all of a sudden, I had sold kind of out of the blue, I had sold another spec screenplay to Hallmark, a rom-com. It was at the time, this was about 2010, and it was at the time where they were just sort of transitioning a bit and doing more rom-coms and trying to find screenplays that had never been made theatrically but could be tailored for the Hallmark audience.
Wow.
And it happened that when I was doing a lot of screenplays during that period, and I had written quite a few spec scripts that were either kind of big broad comedies or romantic comedies. And there was one that we submitted called The Wish List, and it turned out to be right up their alley. And I rewrote the movie I Hallmarkized it, as I say.
Okay.
And we made the movie, and it did really well. And I was kind of started my journey with Hallmark. And a couple of movies later, I showed them, they were looking for a Christmas movie. And because this was at the time, this was about 2012, and this was at the time where Christmas movies were not the cottage industry that they are now.
Okay.
And but they were doing them. They certainly did a large handful of them, I guess you'd say, back then. And I showed them the script called Hitched for the Holidays, which had some very early and accidental tropes that have become very popular in rom-coms, period, and Christmas movies. One of which is the fake dating trope. Which was kind of unique back then, and now it's not unique at all. But the funny thing about the fake dating trope is that as we've seen more of them, instead of it being something that's tired, they always want more of them. I write novels too, and what I've noticed so often in like the rom-com novels is that they look for the tropes. They look for these things.
Right.
Like everybody wants the fake dating trope or the enemies to lovers trope and that kind of. So it's very interesting. So this movie was about two people who it actually started when I was we have to this day have a Christmas party most every year, and Christmas Eve party, and I was looking at the people there at this party, and I was saying, most of these people are paired off or married or whatever, but single people, and wonder what, I feel so fortunate that I was paired off at that point and did not have to like worry about like bringing a date to the Christmas
Right.
party or whatever. And I just started this idea about what would happen. What happens when you don't have a date at the holidays and you
Right.
really don't want one, but you have to have one? What do you do? And I created this story about two single people. It happens one the guy is Catholic, the woman is Jewish. And they have to satisfy each of their families for various reasons. They need to find somebody to date for the holiday period from Thanksgiving to New Year's,
Right.
and they put an ad person they do a personal ad kind of thing, which was more. This was pre dating apps, so they
Right.
did a personal ad online, and looking for a temporary holiday date, and they met. And it was kind of dislike at first sight, and of course they end up falling for each other. But it's really about how what starts off as a fake relationship becomes real and why that happens. And it sort of
Right.
set the tone. It's a funny movie, and I think it kind of set the tone for a lot of things that came after. And we had a lot of fun with the Christmas versus Hanukkah part of it. And it was
Right.
probably it may
Right.
have been the first movie that paired Christmas and Hanukkah together.
Oh,
There
wow.
may have been some after that. There may be one before that. I'm sure some trivia master out there might know the answer to that. I've never found it, but it was really interesting. It was really kind of ahead of its time. And for a Hallmark movie at the time, it was a little bit darker. It had
Huh.
a couple of things. It
Huh.
was very much a theatrical script. So it had a little bit more darkness to it. It had a little bit, but it's very funny. I have to say, everybody thinks it's a very funny film, but it had some darkness, had some depth to it, some texture, and we were able to people look at it and they'll say, "Well, I'm surprised they did that back then." Um, and so it was a little bit, although now I have to say over time, they've been Hallmark in most, so many holiday movies. They've become much more textured and much deeper, and so many are about much more than just what the log line is. But back then, it was kind of a big deal. So the movie did well, and having nothing to do with me, Christmas movies started to become really popular. Maybe that year, 2012, I don't know, maybe there were 10 Christmas movies,
Oh,
12 Christmas
oh my
movies.
gosh.
There may be more, I don't know, but
Yeah.
it wasn't a ton. And now we have up to 40. Hallmark alone has 40 Christmas movies, and then everybody else has Christmas movies. And that wasn't the
Right.
case back then either. I think maybe Lifetime had a few, but now with the streamers, which you didn't really have back then, everybody has gotten into the Christmas movie game. And I always hear numbers like 100 120 Christmas movies were made in a
Right.
season between network and streaming and cable and independent films that are made
Right.
lower budget that are then picked up by some of the smaller cable networks and that kind of thing. So it's really become a major industry, and as it grew, in addition to writing rom-coms and comedies and other things, I always came along with and to pitch other Christmas movies because they were
Great.
neat and all that. So it's been a really fun addition to my work and career, and seeing these movies made, and people love their Christmas movies. It's very
Of
fun to
course.
see. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very loyal audience and
Yeah.
a very dedicated audience. Now, speaking of the audience, how do you balance meeting audience expectations while staying fresh and not predictable or cliche?
Well, I basically try to come up with ideas that I feel are unique, but certainly Hallmark or whoever else is doing the film, they're the best indicators of what is fresh for them and what will be fresh for the audience. They know what they've done.
Right.
There's a desire not to repeat the same thing again or to do something the same but different. To explore areas that haven't been explored. And I think you've seen with all Christmas movies, Hallmark and everybody, there's been just a real, the tent has widened a lot in terms of storytelling, in terms of types of characters, in terms of how the stories are told, in terms of going a little deeper in certain areas. I think they've grown with the audiences. And of course, they do because they're also these, especially Hallmark, they're rerunning older movies during Christmas
Mm,
too. So those
right.
stories are there. People love those movies and those older stories. So they don't need to repeat those because they're kind of there. So the whole point is to basically come up with newer approaches. And even if it does, even if it doesn't have to be like reinventing the wheel, but it's just how to do something differently. In other words, I had a movie a couple of years ago called Lights, Camera, Christmas that I wrote.
Right. Yeah.
And And that was a pitch. I wanted to write something about the making of a Christmas movie, and we found a kind of a fun way into it. And when they put the movie into development, one of the notes was, "We love this story. Is there a way to tell it differently?" And I thought that was a great question. And I came up with like 4 or 5 different ways we could tell the story differently in terms of just like the narrative. How do you get into the story? How do you kind
Right.
of propel the story in a different way? And what I came up with, one of them I came up with that they liked, seemed to like the most was to tell the story of this movie being made, the movie within a movie, tell it in flashback from the premiere of the
Yeah,
movie
that's
itself.
right. Yeah, that was
And
that
and,
was
and it
cool.
turned out to be a really great way of of bringing us back to each moment in time of the making of the movie without having to go through every single moment of that
Right,
story as much in it was a nice way of kind of like tightening up the storytelling, I think,
right.
and it was fun. So we had and also we got out of the town that the movie was shot in and all of that. So you were in a theater most of that time, and it was a
Mhm.
theatrical premiere screening of this movie. And it turned out to be really fun, and it was just a very unique way of telling that story. And I thought that was a great note of how maybe the story is a little different than what we've done, but how can we tell it differently? So, you think
Yeah.
about that. You think about I've been pitching quite a few Christmas and Hanukkah stories lately. And each one is I'm trying to make it something that I don't think we've seen or is more unique or delves into an area that we haven't seen before. And also, it's important for these movies to be you can't say this is a story that could only be set at Christmas time or during the holiday time because things are adaptable. But that's kind of how I go about it. And I think they're looking for now, the networks are looking for, and the streamers like, why does this make sense to be shot at Christmas? Why is it not something? Because some movies have been repurposed to be set at Christmas and all that, and that can work well too. But that's something that I think a lot about in terms of coming up with stories. Why you kind of narrow the focus as you're trying to broaden the focus, you also narrow the focus, and
Huh?
you're saying, why could this movie only be set at Christmas? Or at Hanukkah or at the holiday? Why is the story really inherent to what Christmas is about, what Hanukkah is about, what, they've done, I think 1 or 2 Kwanzaa movies. I mean, what is it about the holiday that this story hangs itself on that could only be done at this time? And I think that's a very important thing. Um, and then trying to broaden from there, trying to broaden the scope of the idea. So, take some thinking and all of that. And, not every idea you have is a yes. There are a lot of passes, but you keep coming up with stuff until your kind of ball gets in the roulette wheel slot,
Right,
essentially.
right. But
Yeah.
that is sort of the acid test is can this movie be shot on a different holiday or without Christmas? And I guess the answer, it sounds like what you're saying, if the studio says, yes, it could be, then that's to them not as attractive, are you
Yeah,
saying, as
I think
one that
so.
could only be
I
shot?
think right now it's not to say that it still won't make a really fun Christmas movie, and it just happens to be a story set at Christmas time, and you tailor the story to the concept of Christmas or the holidays. But you think about, to me, there's always something. The holidays are a very emotional period, and I think for most people, and it triggers a lot in people about that period of time, that Christmas or even Thanksgiving to New Year's, having to celebrate holidays, having to feel good, having to have a good time, no matter what's happening in your life. And I think there are some really interesting stories to tell and emotionally based stories to tell about why the holidays have an impact on people,
Right,
generally positive impact, but they're complicated. And I think sometimes when you add some of those emotional complications in to the holidays, and if you can make it funny at the same time,
right,
I think
right,
it's kind of a nice mixture. So it's just nice to try to like I said widen the tent as much as possible and come up with ideas that work within the bounds of what a Christmas movie is, but also are just a little bit different or take the story in a little different way or examine a ritual or a family ritual or just some kind of story point at Christmas that maybe we haven't seen before.
right. After you finish a script and it's ready to go out, what's your next step, and how do you move it towards getting into production?
Well, hopefully hopefully these scripts are written in steps. So there's an outline step, and then if the outline seems to work, then you move to the script step, and then there are several drafts of the script that become basically the first and second drafts of the script. And then the executives and producers, they'll look at what they have. I mean, the goal, I think, with anybody, whether it's Hallmark or anywhere, is to, if they commission a script, it's to make it. So hopefully they will make it, but sometimes you don't know really what you have until the script is finished. You can have an outline that makes sense, but when you execute it in script form, sometimes some of the things that worked in the outline don't quite work in the script, or vice versa. There are also nice surprises that something works even better than you thought it did in the outline. And then it goes through various, if they do want to continue moving forward with it, which I think is the majority of the time, they will go through different passes with different executives and producers, and a director may come on board, and you do various drafts of the script to get it to a point that they can start to shoot it. And then once it's shooting, it depends upon the state of the script or who's involved, but generally the writers, I may be asked to do something. They may call in from the set and say, this scene isn't quite working, or
Mm.
this joke, can you come up with a better joke or something? And I'll do something long distance. Occasionally I've been there for a little bit on the set while they're doing something, so where they're shooting, so I can jump in then. But generally, the scripts are pretty much where they're going to be at that point. And hopefully, the scripts are a little longer than the movies you see, so that they can have a little extra to edit from. And they're made in a relatively short period of time.
Is it
Um,
a long time between like the initial pitch and then if it's greenlit, it goes into production, or could it be quick?
it depends upon when the process starts. I mean, sometimes, and again, this goes for anywhere you sell a movie to. It depends on when you pitch it. You may pitch something and it's picked up or put into development, but because of the calendar is
Right.
not as much urgency to get it done as quickly. So other things, get in the way. And they then come back to your story. Other times, based upon the calendar, if it's a little more urgent, and they move forward and say, yes, we're going to put it into development. It's not that you necessarily have a shorter time to write it, but there's less downtime in between, because
Right.
they kind of have to get to it, and make sure to, and especially for Christmas, where it has to air during a certain period of time. It could air in the end of October, it could air in the middle of December, but it still has to be in that period. The script needs to be ready to go to shoot. At least, I mean, these movies are shot as late as September and October, but still,
Wow.
that the time goes very fast. So sometimes it's a much tighter process, tighter timeline, depending upon where you come in on the calendar.
Okay. How would you suggest screenwriters expand their network of producers? Networking, film markets? If so, which ones? Competitions or utilizing online platforms?
Well, the thing about producers, and particularly the people who are producing, or the companies that are producing TV movies, Christmas movies, rom-coms, mysteries, that kind of thing. Their goal is to find as much good material as they can and bring it into Hallmark or Lifetime or Netflix or whoever, and try to move it forward. So generally, the producers are looking for good material. But a lot of it is based upon their connections, based upon where they've produced movies before, where they feel they can actually get some traction, get something done. So if a producer has produced, a number of movies for Hallmark, let's say over the last, I don't know, the last 5, 6, 7 years, there's a good chance that it's easier for them to sort of use their more immediate contacts and present material. Doesn't mean you'll move it forward, but at least they have access to present it. So they're looking for, in my experience, they seem like they know what they can sell or what they think they can sell, but
Mhm.
they're looking for a lot of material, because you do have to have a lot of projects going at the same time, so that if one
Right.
thing doesn't stick, something else, maybe there's some backup project that'll work or something like that. So I think the producers are very receptive. How you meet the producers, I've always told people that if you haven't worked with a producer, but if you zero in on the, I don't know, 6, 8, 10 producers who seem to do the most number of let's say Christmas movies, for, let's say, Hallmark. If you go on IMDb or IMDb Pro, there's usually contact information, or you can find their contact information online somewhere and query the producer. And just, if you're a new writer and you have what you think is a great idea, or better yet, an existing script, to just see if they'd be willing to take a look at what you have. I wouldn't send the script without being told, yes, you can send the script. Not
Right.
sure I would even send the log line. I would probably just say, I have a couple of ideas I'd like to run by you. Are you open to it?
Mhm.
They may say yes, would love to see it, or well, I'm kind of full up for now. Let's talk again in 6 months or something like that. These, by and large, the producers are accessible. Where to meet them beyond that, and beyond just if you know somebody who knows somebody, you can always say, what other writers do you know that are getting movies made, and could they make an entree for you? But I think it's important to target the right producer and
Right.
not to just contact a dozen producers that are producing. Find the ones who first of all watch their movies. That's the main thing. I think it's very important to say, yeah, I just watched such and such. I really enjoyed it. I have a film that's kind of in that world. Would you like to take a look at it? I think it's very important to know who you're pitching to, what they're about, what kinds of films they've made, who's at the company. Maybe there are a few development people there beyond whoever runs the company, and maybe you happen to know one of those people. Maybe there's kind of some kind of common ground that you can start with. I think, like anything, producers, they want to feel like you're not just throwing spaghetti against the wall, that you're
Right.
really taking
Right.
a
Right.
serious look at who would be best for your project, and it's not just somebody who's breathing and who happens to get movies made.
Yeah.
But in terms of other places, I'm not really sure. Uh, and of course, once you do get a movie or two made, then you have your producer contacts, and if the experience have been good for them and for you, you can go back to them, or at least then you've had some things made at a network or a streamer, so you've got contacts there. The first one is hard, and then there's the whole idea. A lot of movies are made, a lot of Christmas movies and rom-coms are made by non-Writers Guild writers, because there are a
Right.
lot of good non-guild writers out there who can do something for much less than what the guild contract might be. So that can sometimes be attractive based upon the budget of the movie. So it's not, there are lots of different ways in, I think it's pretty equal opportunity, in that it's really about the idea. You have a great idea,
Right.
and like I said, even better if you got a great execution on a Christmas movie script, an existing script. I would say anybody starting out, you're better off having a script to start with, because it's easier to sell a finished script. And at the very least, if you haven't had something produced, then even if they don't buy your script, at least they can see you can write a script, because that's
Right.
a big part of it. Just because you pitch a great idea and have an outline doesn't mean you can actually write the script in effective script form. And I just recommend everybody do their homework, try to write something that seems like it's, as best you can tell, in the ballpark for who you're pitching it to or what network you're pitching it to, and always have a good writing sample. You can never go wrong by having a good writing sample. And you'll obviously learn a lot by doing it.
Exactly. Now, you are not a writer who is starting out, and you mentioned earlier about how you can pitch a story idea and then get the writing assignment. So
Right.
that's obviously only for established writers. So my next question, I was going to ask, do you attend film markets? I think I know the answer to that. But when you're pitching projects, do you rely on a representative? Do you do any film markets, or is it a combination of both, or you just have connections and you can call them up and say, I have a few ideas I want to talk
Yeah,
to you about?
it's sort of a combination of things. I mean, I sometimes, a rep will have some kind of, thoughts for you, or some connection that they have. Uh, I've never gone to any film markets or things like that, or festivals, or anything sort of on that order. In terms of to meet producers, maybe I should, I don't know. But generally it is through a submission, through a rep. In the beginning, for me, it was through my agent at the time, submitting scripts to Hallmark, to a production company that was working a lot with Hallmark back then, and we got that relationship off the ground as a result of that. A lot of times when you become established in a place, they will come directly to you and say, I have this project, might be good for you to rewrite for us, or do you have an idea? We have this book that needs adapting. It might be up your alley. You want to take a look at it, that kind of thing. Or you go in or I go in and pitch directly to one of the executives or bring in a producer, depending upon the project, and see if they want to be involved. And obviously, if you have a producer involved, then it doesn't sell at one place. Maybe they can take it somewhere else and get it set
Right.
up somewhere else. So there are lots of different ways of doing it. Certainly, when you've had when you've had things produced and had some successes, it definitely makes it easier. It is a bit of a chicken and egg situation, particularly for new writers.
Yeah, exactly. Well, what advice would you give to your younger self about writing screenplays? Or especially like if you were to look back in time and say, oh, the Christmas market is booming, uh, would I do anything differently?
I would say I would say to anybody, I would say to my younger self, knowing what I know now, and I would say it to any writer now, is to if you want to write a spec screenplay and you say the movie market, the theatrical market has certainly changed in terms of what's produced theatrically. There's a limited space basically for rom-coms and rom-com scripts or even thrillers or whatever. And I would say if you want to start out, write that great Christmas or holiday spec and have that great writing sample because there's something you can do with it. At this point
Hmm.
in time, they're still making a lot of Christmas movies. Places like Netflix and Amazon, Hulu, places like that, as far as I know, pretty much need a script. They'll develop less from a pitch. They like to see a script.
Hmm.
I think it's very helpful. And I would say write that great script and don't wait for, there's always been for writers, it's always been a, kind of a, you know, I don't want to say lesser of two evils, but like, what do you do? You want to pitch because you have ideas and you want to get hired to write it so that at least you're writing a script within the auspices of the people who are actually going to make the movie. So you're not playing so much of a guessing game. It really does, if you have good writing samples to show that you can write something and you have a new idea, it really does. I think the process really works better when you can work within the system to write a script so that you're working together along the way, and hopefully the end product will be closer to what everybody really wants than if you're starting from scratch with a script that may end up going through a whole lot of changes anyway. But that said, it's not always easy to get it done that way. And at least if you have a script, that's the story too. I mean, the execution needs to be good, but it's about the story. It's always about the story. It's
Right,
always about a
right.
story that when you pitch it, people perk up or they laugh or it's, oh, we haven't done that before. That's interesting. That's a
Hmm.
great idea. Try to think about things that in holiday movies, what have been some of your rituals, growing up as a kid at Christmas or Hanukkah or Kwanzaa or whatever, what were the unique things that you did? Did you go horseback riding on Christmas Eve? Did you, whatever it is you did? Maybe that's something you can mine your own experiences for it. And then it becomes, why are you the person who needs to write this? Because I'm the one who had this experience and this is my story. And
Hmm.
that's always helpful in anything you write.
Of
As,
course.
as if you go into a meeting and somebody says, well, why are you the only one who really should be writing this story? And maybe other people would write it as well, but they write it differently. And I'm the one to write this because A, B, and C, it's my story. I knew somebody who did this.
Hmm.
I was very impacted by this experience. I had a great time. I learned. I met my husband or wife doing this, that
Hmm.
kind of.
Hmm. Yeah, that's a
So
good story.
bring yourself to the party is really what it is. And my best piece of advice always about writing is never give up. Because
Yay.
if you give up, it never happens. As hard as it may feel while you're doing it, if you give up, it is never going to happen. And you have to have a lot of balls in the air at once. You have to be doing different things. You need to be finding ways of bringing in some money, whether it's writing or doing something else while you're writing, while you're trying to be discovered or while you're trying to get something sold. And just enjoy the process. It's a wonderful process writing a script when it works, and especially if it has a happy ending in terms of
Right.
getting made. But enjoy it. It should not be torture or anything.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's very encouraging. Very
Yeah.
encouraging. Now, to wrap up, would you like to share any social media details or website links or about your novels or plays,
Yeah, I'd
so
love
our
to
audience can
actually.
keep track of your work?
For sure. Well, I'm on let's see, Twitter and or X, whatever you want to call it, and Twitter, X, and Instagram at Gary Goldstein LA. I'm on Blue Sky as well. You can find me there. I have an author Facebook page, so you can sort of search my name under the author pages. I'm on LinkedIn, and I have my own website, which is GaryGoldsteinLA.com, which you can learn way more than you ever want to know about me on that website, which I keep pretty much updated. And also, I have written 3 novels that have come out since 2020.
Wow. Wow.
First one was a Hollywood set rom-com called The Last Birthday Party, which I'm very proud of. My second one was a family drama called The Mother I Never Had. And my last book, which came out in September, is called Please Come to Boston, and it's a campus romance set in 1975 at Boston University, and also flips to today as well, parts of today as well. Yeah, check them out. They're all available in bookstores and online and on Amazon. Hopefully we'll see some of those made as movies one day too.
There you go. There you go. And you could already write that script.
Yeah. Well, I did. For anybody out there, I did write the Last Birthday Party script already.
Okay.
You have that. So yeah, I'm
Wow.
ready.
You're quite the Renaissance writer. You
Yeah,
do
trying to be.
TV, film, stage,
Yeah,
novels.
I've done a lot of expansion of my career, but I've learned from all of it. Each discipline feeds the other discipline, and I've met great people through all of it. I've learned a ton, I hope it's made me a better writer as a result of it. That's the goal.
Exactly. Well, Gary, thank you so much. Thank you for sharing your knowledge, your experience. Thank you for coming on the Christmas Movie
Uh,
Screenwriter podcast today.
Thank you, Karen. It was great. I really appreciate the invite. Take care.
Take care. And now for my action checklist. I have 4 items for your action checklist from my interview with Gary. Number 1, why won't producers buy your holiday script? Well, because if your story works any time during the year, it's not a true Christmas movie. Networks and streamers want movies that must be set at Christmas. Use the holiday season's emotional impact, family, nostalgia, second chances to enhance the story. And add humor and complexity to make the film feel fresh. Number 2, target the right producers, not everyone. Research producers who specialize in Christmas movies. Avoid mass queries. Focus on producers whose work aligns with yours. And know their past projects and tailor your pitch accordingly. Number 3, take advantage of the Christmas movie market. The demand for holiday films is still strong. Writing a spec script can open doors. Networks and production companies actively seek fresh Christmas content. A strong script with a clear holiday hook is more likely to get picked up. And number 4, write from personal experience and stay persistent. Infuse your own experiences, rituals, and emotions to create authentic characters. Success requires persistence. Keep writing and pitching. Stay connected in the industry. Relationships and recommendations can open up opportunities. As Gary said, never give up. Well, that's the show. Thank you for listening. To show your support, please give us a 5-star rating on wherever you get your podcasts. And you can fuel more great content by buying me a hot cocoa on Buy Me a Coffee. Just look for the page Christmas Movie and explore other inspiring podcasts and blogs on our website at christmasmoviescreenwriter.com. I'm your host, Karen McCann. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you on the next Christmas Movie Screenwriter podcast. Bye.